Right, so moving on. So our panelists are here throughout the day. We can, if you have any queries, questions, you can still get connected to them. So next up is the presentation on analytics, a change agent in digital transformation by Mr. Radhakrishna B, Director Customer Advisory, SAS Institute India Private Limited, and Mr. Sachin, Practice Lead Big Data and Analytics, Inspira Enterprise. A huge round of applause for the next industry presentation, sir. We have 10 minutes on this amazing discussion.
Digital transformation. There has been immense and very interesting conversation that has happened since morning around the phases of digital transformation, what is the current state of digital transformation, adoption of digital transformation. We're also getting into the realm of what we call it as digital acceleration at this point of time. And that's where we get into some of the trends what we are seeing at this point of time. The trends from the government perspective or government department's perspective, there is increasing effort on securing trust in public institutions which are delivering services specifically to citizens. What we're also seeing is there is a lot of emphasis on smart service delivery to citizens and all the stakeholders who are consuming the services of government. What we are also seeing is there is a lot of emphasis at this point of time for by the government departments to deploy smart and sustainable infrastructure. And as was shared a few minutes back, there is a lot of effort which is put in by government on economic recovery and revenue stability given the situation what we had in last 2 to 3 years. Now some of the key technology of course is one of the key enabler. What do we see some of the themes around this particular technology? One of course is a lot of emphasis has been put in around automation and augmentation in last few years. Second, of course, is what we are seeing increasingly the departments are emphasizing on not just on-prem infrastructure. They are looking at cloud adoption. They are also looking at hybrid architecture where you are looking at both on-prem, combination of on-prem as well as cloud. One of the most important aspects of this technology as a theme is also the data. So no more we are having the problem of data availability. A few years back we had an issue of data availability. What we have at this point of time, the issue is around data explosion. Our ability to handle the large volumes of data that are available at this point of time. And that is where the realm of integrated...
Just a second. Requesting everybody in the hall to please take your seats. We have a very interesting presentation going on. Requesting you to please take your seats. Sorry, you can continue.
Thanks for that. So there is a lot of emphasis at this point of time integrating the data. Interestingly, what government departments are not just limiting themselves to internal data, there is a lot of openness to look at external data and combining internal as well as external data. I'll talk about some of those examples following. I think the last one, which is very, very important, which is caught up the attention of almost all the government departments, which is sitting on huge piles of data, is AI/ML actually. So what government departments are talking about is AI in action. It's not just adopting at one point of time, living the benefits of AI at one point of time. What is very important is we are seeing AI in action, which is used sustainably in government departments. Now, just to see specifically on the revenue side, one of the important aspects is what is the composition of revenue or revenue mix by various departments in a particular state. What we have done is we looked at the trends based on 2022 and 2023 budget. And what we see here is that as what is expected at this point of time, majority of the revenue mix associated with the state is still with GST, is still with sales tax, and more interestingly with stamps and registration, which is the land revenue. Okay. Now, just to look at how state governments or various government departments are utilizing this revenue mix to maximize. At least we have an agenda in terms of what needs to maximize. and usage of analytics in terms of maximizing this. I'm just going to talk about some of the examples which were spoken by a lot of speakers since morning. But here is an evidence what we can see in terms of adoption of analytics for revenue maximization. So the first one, of course, is around commercial tax. There is a lot of commercial tax which comprises of GST, VAT, excise, and so on, is the biggest element as part of any state revenue. And that is where most of the state governments at this point of time have deployed analytics to not just to maximize the revenue, but also to increase or improve the taxpayer experience. So most of these objectives are not just driven by maximizing the experience or maximizing the revenue, but also it is around improving the taxpayer experience, which is very, very critical. And most of the state governments where we have seen this, they have seen increase in revenue multiple folds over a period of time by application of analytics. And the second one which I will talk about is property tax. One of the most important aspects for a municipal corporation is the amount of revenue what they get through property tax, which is the major component of revenue for a. What we've seen is that at a municipal corporation level, one of the largest municipal corporation is adopting analytics or deployed analytics to maximize revenue. A case in point here is that in the first year of deploying analytics, they have essentially recovered almost 60 to 100 crores in the first year of deploying analytics. This is one good classic example of realizing the benefit, and that benefit is very much in the quantifiable form. And the third one, which I'll get into, of course, is mining. One of the states with large proportion of mining revenue in major minerals has deployed analytics, and they are evaluating not just from the revenue perspective, but also understanding in a better way the various stakeholders. What are those stakeholders? The stakeholders include licensees, the stakeholders include transporters, all the stakeholders who are part of that ecosystem. They are evaluating them so that they can not just look at maximizing revenue, but also servicing those stakeholders, and then also identifying the possible sources of leakage or evasion. Excise. This is a very, very contentious topic in any state where the kind of policies that are adopted by a state will indicate what is the level of revenue that a state will realize in excise. And here is where I've seen, as an example of a large state in North, has deployed analytics to not just use it for day-to-day understanding of how the patterns, but they are using it for policy making actually. Policy making to increase rates in a particular segment, decrease rates in a particular segment, also compete with the neighboring states in terms of what should be the policy of rates around the liquor associated with the excise policy. And the last one in revenue. Now, stamps and registration, as I said, land revenue is one of the largest in the top 3 revenue contributors for a particular in any state. Now, the issue with land and revenue is that a lot of data is lying in documents. Most of the data is lying in documents. Here is where the state government departments, the registration department is utilizing the data which is extracted from these records, paper documents through OCR and so on. And that is a very good example of exploiting the data, which is not just limited to structured, but also moving to unstructured actually. So by the way, all these are the examples which are put in use by the state government departments, which really talks about the level of usage of analytics. Now let me just move very quickly to on the expenditure side. On the expenditure side, what you see here is most of the expenditure for state governments is in the realm of social benefits. It could be in terms of funding various schemes. It could be in terms of education, and a lot of effort spending is happening in rural development as well as in agriculture. So the question at hand or the task at hand for the departments is how do they optimize such that with the objective of that right beneficiary gets right benefit at right point of time. And that is where increasingly the departments are looking at not just benefit associated for a particular individual, they are looking at life cycle of benefits What do I mean by life cycle? Right from looking at a toddler to a senior citizen. What are the different benefits who are eligible during this entire life cycle, so that they can essentially proactively provide those services to those individuals. Now, here is an example of a large healthcare scheme. You could guess what I'm talking about, where we are working with them with an intention of not just identifying suspicious claims, but also from the perspective of doing the disease profiling, emerging diseases, concentration of diseases, where are these diseases concentrated, and what are the typical contributors to these diseases? Are they, lifestyle? Are they, health, eating habits, and so on? We are essentially evaluating all of those things as part of, it's not just limiting to provision of certain financial benefit to an individual. It is also understanding these things so that they can improve the scheme. Okay. Then, And then what we are also looking at is, I think that's a timer for, time up. I'll just conclude very quickly. So what we are also looking at in the context of education, government departments are using it for understanding the 360-degree profile of the students so that they can cater to them in a better way. And the last is the social benefits, whether it is pension, whether it is scholarship, and so on. A lot of expenditure of state governments, overall expenditure goes into the social benefits. And here is where increasingly departments are talking about a single view of beneficiary, which I just mentioned earlier in terms of life cycle, so that there is a consolidated benefits view for a particular individual across multiple departments. And that's what most of the governments, state governments are talking about actually. What is also very interesting is that departments are also looking at analytical investments in water, in rapid transport, which is in the context of metros, and also in the context of power. When we refer to power, we are talking about energy forecasting, we are talking about non-technical losses which happen in energy. And the last one, we spoke about smart cities. Now, from the perspective of safe cities, analytics are being deployed across multiple police departments, not just for viewing or consolidating data, but also from the perspective of crime prediction. So not many countries have been successful in the realm of crime prediction. How is the crime prediction very important? Specifically in the context of emergency dial, police departments have a huge task of identifying where they need to put in their the resources so that the response time to address a particular call can be minimized. And that is where we are talking about utilization of analytics to minimize the response time. So what is that we have to offer? SAS essentially provides the capabilities through the entire life cycle, right from data ops, entire set of analytics, and then of course a set of visualizations so that it aids the department to take decisions. And I think that is very, very important. In the context of data-driven decision making, so the entire life cycle is supported by SAS so that it becomes easy and people are able to take right decisions at right point of time. I'll take one more minute. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. I think we were given lesser time than what we budgeted for owing to the situation. So thank you very much. Please feel free to visit our stall where we can provide these things in more detail. Thank you very much.
Can we have a huge round of applause? I would request Dr. Shafkat Khanji, Additional Mission Director, Ayushman Bharat, Digital Health Mission, UT of Jammu Kashmir, to please join us on stage and felicitate Mr. Radhakrishna B, who is the Director Customer Advisory, SAS Institute India Private Limited. A huge round of applause.